Lift off. Welcome to the zombie apocalypse, my friends. Anyhow, welcome everybody. You are here at b.hive's Apocalypse Humpday, and we are going through the zombie saga. We're on chapter 21 of my book, Zechariah 14:12, Humanity's Last Stand. And we are getting closer and closer to the end. So things are starting to come up to a crescendo right now. What we do here on Apocalypse Hump Day is I started out reading you short stories that I have written that in one way or another deals with the apocalypse. And so, that being said, we made our way into Hola, brother, hermano. How we doing, Kevin? Good to see you, buddy. Again, I know you missed me from last night. So we made our way through up to my zombie novel, which I actually now have a copy of, and it is right here. Zechariah 14:12, Humanity's Last Stand. This was the first novel I ever wrote. So, So it holds a special place in my heart. Gives me the feels. Anyway, so this isn't my copy. I'm actually going to donate this copy to the Winthrop Library. But, this is it. This is the back. I create my covers as well as the back and front covers, and actually, when it comes to writing and self-publishing a book, making the cover is the biggest pain in the ass. So you got pixel counts and all this other stuff that you have to transfer over. Sometimes you have to change one file into a different type of file, and it gets to be kind of a headache. So anyway, a little backstory on this book. That nurse on there was supposed to be my ex-wife, or she was my wife at the time, but she was going to pose for me, and just because our schedules are crazy and I was on a deadline, self-imposed deadline, by the way, I wasn't able to get her to do it, so I had a friend do the whole nurse mask guts, and then it's superimposed. I got missile launch there in the background, and then this crowd here, this crowd of people on the back cover, that is actually a photo of the Democratic convention, and I just superimposed a kind of a negative filter on there, and just kind of doused it with some red, and that's what we got, was that. So this is actually the Democratic convention. I couldn't tell you what year it was, but those are the zombies on the back cover. Anyhow, so I'm not going to have you guys go through some bad zombie jokes tonight. Good evening, Chuckles. How are you today? So no bad zombie jokes today. I am going to throw some zombie facts at you. So buzz. So one of the first facts I'm going to throw at you is that people who like zombies are called zombophiles. And thank you, Chuck, for bringing the Badgers. That's the name of the folk who are slam into their zombies. And the people who have a deep fear of zombies, however, is known as kinemortophobia. Kinemortophobia. If you are afraid of zombies, that's what your phobia is. Another fact, people were scared of zombies way back in ancient Greece. Archaeologists have found ancient graves which contain skeletons that were pinned down by rocks, assumably to prevent the dead from coming back to life. The ancient Greeks may have invented democracy and the alarm clock, but they could still be prone to numptiness. Another fact is the 8th of October is World Zombie Day. In some cities around the world, on the 8th of October, people dress up like zombies and shuffle about to raise money for charity, and it's usually a pub crawl type of thing. So, another fact, a human zombie outbreak is not impossible. A zombie apocalypse is not necessarily an impossibility. Some scientists claim that because humans are susceptible to brain parasites, behavioral viruses such as mad cow disease, which we'll touch on in a little bit, and neurotoxins, some of us one day, if we're not careful, could end up doing the proverbial monster mash. The first ever film to have a zombie in it was called White Zombie. That was made in 1932. There is a debate going on whether Frankenstein was actually technically the first zombie movie. That came out in 1931. I'll get into that in a little bit here. The film generally agreed to be the first official zombie flick, which was White Zombie. It was directed by a man named Victor Halperin, and it starred Bela Lugosi as the zombie master. Now, although zombies are purely fiction, in the insect world, zombies actually exist. A fungus found in tropical rainforests known as cordyceps releases spores into the air which infects the brains of ants. These zombie ants then climb trees where they die. The fungus then sprouts through the dead bodies and releases further air spores to infect more ants. So, Rob Zombie. So anyway, the deal with the cordyceps fungus, the zombie fungus, is kind of the basis of the zombie TV show on HBO called The Last of Us. It's actually really well done. It's based on a video game, which normally the video games don't transfer well onto film. But they did a really good job with that one. If you get a chance to check it out, it's on HBO or Max, I think is what the streaming channel is now. But I highly recommend it. It's a good story, good acting, and good special effects, and it's quite kind of a cool slant on the zombie genre. And let's see, in Scandinavia, for all you Scandinavians out there, zombies are called draugrs. According to legend, draugrs were warriors who were so fierce that after they died, they would come back to life to carry on killing the living. As well as cutting off their heads, you had to burn their bodies and take their ashes out to sea. So yeah, those are some badass Scandinavians. Now, regarding the debate on the Frankenstein movie, some people say the fact that the monster was a reanimated corpse means that he was a zombie. Others say the fact that he was never alive in the first place means that he wasn't a zombie. Also, zombies traditionally feast on human flesh, which the monster does not. So, the debate rages on. So, help to tell me in the comments what you guys think. Should Frankenstein be considered a zombie or not? Anyhow, I was going to touch up on, I was looking up some facts. I know a lot of people, okay, personally, I was hoping that the COVID-19, the coronavirus, when that pandemic hit the world, I was really kind of hoping for a zombie apocalypse. I'm not going to lie. But the symptoms were so different for every case and nobody wanted to eat human flesh. So, yeah, it was a big disappointment. Anyhow, so I did some research last night, looking up different diseases that affect the human brain in a zombie-like way, and also on a couple of drugs that are out there that are called the zombie drugs, including the one that caused that Miami case that dude got his face eaten off by somebody that was high on the stuff. Anyway, so one of the things in my book that I talk about is this reanimated corpse virus, the RAC-V. I had mentioned in the book that it is somewhat like mad cow disease, or the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is what it's called, as the official name. And here are the symptoms of that: tingling, burning, or prickling of the face and extremities. It also causes dementia and psychosis and stiffness of the joints, and also makes it hard to move around. It can also cause comas, memory loss, hallucinations, personality changes, impaired thought, and speech. Symptoms are really hard to catch because they happen very fast. And by the time you've got symptoms, it's too late, and it's fatal. And people will usually die within about a few months. So if there ever was a zombie apocalypse through that, Kevin has mad cow disease. Oh, man, that sucks, dude. You got like a few months, so you better get your ass up here so you and I can at least join one beer together. Or one soda, at least. So, yeah, it is fatal. You can die within a few months. So if there was a zombie apocalypse due to people getting mad cow disease, it would only last a few months. Well, I suppose if they perpetuate it on and on. But you have to eat tainted meat in order to get it. You can't pass it on to one to another person. So, the next one was rabies. I looked up what are the symptoms of a human that has rabies. This one's maybe a little closer to zombie type behavior. There is, hey Linda, you made it. You made it to the live show. Irritability and aggressiveness, excessive movements, bizarre thoughts. I might have rabies if you've read some of my books. I bet you do eat a lot of tainted stuff, man. Keep that in the bedroom. Anyhow, clean it up, Brad. You're also, if you have rabies, you have muscle spasms, weakness, sensitivity to lights, to certain touches and sounds, and vomiting, and also hyperactivity. Now, I also did some research. Yes, finally. You and Kev are zombies. Great. You better stay away from those badgers, Chuck, if you're a zombie. And you better, Kevin, you better send back the package that Chuck sent you. Because I think he sent you some of those badgers to help you out down there in Florida. So, yes, Linda, finally you're here. It's very good to see you live and in person, so to speak. So, but yeah, Linda, in case any of you are wondering, Linda was a character in one of my books, Pavor Nocturnus. She was in the werewolf story. So yeah, we have a celebrity amongst us. So anyway, the two drugs that are out there, one of them being Flakka. Some of the symptoms that people who abuse Flakka, of course, I have a hard term with the term abuse of drugs, because I don't know how else you would use them. But anyway, Flakka, the symptoms are hemorrhaging, that's never good, fever, heart attack, renal failure, also recklessness, disinhibition. Wow, I had to say that a few times in my head. Maybe I'm coming down with rabies or something, or mad cow. Aggression, psychomotor agitation, delusions, and delirium. So, bath salts, which is a synthetic cathinone, a stimulant, and people have been known when they lose their shit and or end up in like the emergency room. Their symptoms are very, very aggressive zombie like. Some of the symptoms, if you're on bath salts, is confusion, acute psychosis, agitation, combativeness, aggression, violence, paranoia, hallucinations, and delusions. Bath salts was the drug that they blamed for the Miami face chewing incident. But as it turns out, there were no bath salts in that man's system. He was the only thing they found in his system was marijuana. So evidently, pot can make you chew someone's face off. So me is just hunger, because I really like a really good chewy face to nibble on every once in a while. But that's me. Different strokes and stuff. So, those are some facts I just threw at you. So now you guys are so well educated. This podcast is nothing but educational and entertaining. I'm hoping. Sorry, Linda, we're not doing bad zombie jokes. We may do that next week. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, so we're going to jump into our story, which is we're on chapter 21. The last week we were reading chapter 20, and Len had gone out for the first time with doing surveillance, sentry duty at the Moon Valley County Fairgrounds, and he also had to shoot some people that had been infected that were in a medevac unit. So, but yeah, he is aware that his wife and her party are safe and sound at their place, or at least that's what he thought. But it turns out their house got invaded by a kind of a crazed cult leader who calls himself Pastor Nemmers. And the house is being invaded. So that's where we're going to pick up, is see what's going on with Chris, Hal, Kyla, Brent, and yeah, Dave is dead. Dave died a couple chapters ago. He got shot by one of the cult members. Got shot right in the head, and his head exploded all over Brent. So yeah. Anyhow, all right, let's get into it. Chapter 21. By the way, best coffee that I think I've ever drank. Other than Cafe Du Monde's coffee. It's got the chicory root in it out of New Orleans. That's pretty good. But this stuff, next best thing, this is it's espresso coffee. And it's called Cafe Bustelo, and it's super cheap. It's like $5 for a can. Can't go wrong there. But it's really bitter. It's really strong, and I love it. So, and it won't make you into a zombie. I don't think. But anyway, okay. Chapter 21. I digress. It sounded like the finale of Fair Lake's own 4th of July celebration. Fair Lakes, by the way, ranked number 4 in fireworks display for the Independence Day celebrations in the state of Minnesota. 10 years running. Black Rifle. Yes, that is also a good coffee, but I really like this if it's cheap. So, but it was far from a joyous occasion. The beautiful woodwork of Hal's home was being reduced to nothing but splinters as gunfire erupted just outside the crumbling door of the upstairs apartment he and his wife Melanie had laboriously remodeled over a summer 2 years before. They're coming through any minute, Brent whispered. I'm going to booby trap the door to delay them. I need you guys to go out onto the deck. What are you going to do? Chris asked. We need to get to the ambulance. Are you crazy? I can't make it to the other side of the house like this. I'm going to carry you. Are you guys ready? They all nodded. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, sang the mad reverend from down the hall. Brent duct taped 4 grenades around the doorway with a line connecting each one by their respective pins. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He ran over and scooped Chris up in a fireman's carry with some protest coming from Chris and the gunshot wound in his shoulder. Hal, Kyla, Chris, and Brent made their way to the side of the deck. There was a 4.5-inch wide ledge that went around the side of the house and hopefully to where the ambulance still sat parked. Ready? He whispered. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. There was banging on the door now, which forced urgency in Brent and his crew. Hal hated heights, and he immediately clung to the shingles of the roof. Come on, man, Brent encouraged. We're almost there. His truth is marching on. A splintery sound, and then, brace yourselves, Brent hoarsely whispered. Glory, glory, hallelujah. They all felt it before they heard it. But all 4 concussion grenades went off simultaneously. A deafening bang and then a flash. As their ears rang, flames erupted from the French doors to the apartment. Kyla, with her hands to her ears, teetered and almost fell off the parapet when Hal grabbed a hold of her hoodie and pulled her back. Go, 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 Brent ordered as they raced carefully down the ledge to the other side of the house. The roof of the ambulance was just below them by 3.5 feet. Brent gently put Chris down on her one good foot. Get it started, he said to her. Next, he helped Kyla down onto the roof of the ambulance. Hal went to climb down, and there was a gunshot. Both men looked around. Oh, Jesus, Hal. Brent looked at Hal's abdomen. Hal looked down to the spot Brent was staring at. One of the flock had shot him just underneath them. Brent took aim and shot the crazed woman in the face. Hal fell onto the roof, holding his gut. Hang in there, man, Brent said, hopping down onto him. He slid to the edge of the ambulance and dragged Hal with him. He got Hal into the side door, and then he was tackled from the side. It was Reverend Nemmers. His face was black and red from the grenade explosion. One eye was blind, and the other had a murderous look in it. His lips were torn from his face and hung off the side of his jaw. God will have his vengeance, he squealed. God will have his wrath. The Reverend jabbed his index and middle fingers into his shoulder wound, which made Brent cry out. Brent's hand with the .45 in it swung around, but Nemmers just twisted his fingers, and Brent dropped the gun, screaming out. Bloody drool hung from the Reverend's wrecked face onto Brent's unshaven, wincing cheek. His fingers were digging deeper and deeper into his shoulder. Get off me, you son of a bitch, Brent screamed out. Nemmers pinned his arms down with his knees and then grabbed Brent's jaw and pried it open. This is my blood, the Reverend said as he drooled blood into his mouth. Drink in remembrance of me. Brent choked as the faint coppery taste of the madman's blood trickled down his throat. The Reverend Nemmers grabbed a hold of his ruined lips and tore them from his face. "This is my body," he said menacingly. "Eat this in remembrance of me." "Eat this, you sick fuck," Hal had said, driving his foot into the gored face of the insane Reverend. Hal and Kyla helped drag Brent into the side door of the ambulance. "Go," Hal hollered to Chris. They sped off as a few of the infected hog-piled onto Reverend Nemmers and began their own twisted version of the Last Supper. "Chris," Kyla said from the back, "you're going to have to look at them. They both look like shit." Kyla and Chris swapped places. She went over to Brent first. He was in pain, but his injuries were superficial. The bullet that hit him in the shoulder had gone all the way through. Hal, on the other hand, had been shot in the gut. Those kinds of wounds were never good, and for the most part were eventually fatal. "How are you holding up, Hal?" Chris asked, trying to mask the sadness that was creeping up on her. "Well, I don't think I'll be eating much," Hal managed to smile. She pulled his blood-soaked shirt up. The bullet had hit him in an upward angle and ripped through his large intestine and stopped somewhere beyond his pancreas. He wasn't gurgling blood, so she knew it hadn't damaged his lungs. "How's it look?" Brent asked in the gurney next to them. Chris put a giant gauze pad on his wound and used a tourniquet to keep the pressure on. "He's lost a lot of blood," she said quietly. "Chris, where am I going?" Kyla called from up front. "Head to the Moon Valley County Fairgrounds." "Do you need me for a transfusion?" Brent asked. "Hal," she turned to him, "do you know your blood type?" "Type A," he said, and then gurgled up some blood. And he blacked out. "Hal!" Chris slapped his face lightly. "Come on, Hal, stay with me." He opened his eyes, but they were rolling back into his head, and then after a few more slaps, he focused them on Chris. "It's time to sign off," he said, smiling. "Dead air." "Come on, man." Brent began to tear up. "Don't leave me, buddy. I'll be stuck with all these girls." Hal reached into the pocket of his cargo pants. He pulled out a small radio. "This is for you, Chris," he whispered. "Hal, I can't." She was beginning to cry. "I grabbed it before we got attacked. It's programmed to the same channel you talk to your family on. Just turn it on and..." "Hal?" Brent said with tears streaming down his face. "Hal?" Chris was crying. "What's going on back there?" Kyla asked. "God damn it, Hal!" Brent had come over and was holding his hand. Hal gave it a light squeeze and gave a deep, moaning sigh. Chris cleaned up his face and tucked his hands underneath the bloody sheet and then pulled it over his head after kissing him lightly on the forehead. "Let's get you cleaned up," she said to Brent. "So we're going to the safe zone?" he asked. "Yes." She pulled off his shirt and began cleaning the wound on his shoulder. How's the use of your hand?" she continued. He brought his hand up and touched her face. She put her hand on his and moved it back to his lap. "Don't, Brent," she said gently. "But There was hurt in his voice. "We're going to see my family, Brent. Don't you get that?" Of course I do. But what about us?" "There is no us." "I'm sorry, but..." Okay. I'm the one that should be sorry. I should never have..." "What, rescued me?" He laughed. "Well, of course not. I should have never kissed you. She stuck him with a needle and began to sew him up. Ouch! Jesus! He yelped. I thought you would have had enough of Jesus after dealing with the good Reverend. Brent shook, thinking about the taste of the Reverend's blood. There was a loud thump, and the ambulance jerked, followed by a few others. Kyla? Chris said. Sorry, she sounded panicked. There's so many of those things on the road. I can't avoid them. Brent and Chris went up to the front to see what the situation was. Scattered about Old County Road 9 were packs of infected. The windshield was a gored mess of bone, blood, and black sludge. Careful, Kyla, Brent said. Hit too many of those things and you'll stall out the ambulance. She swerved around the next group and almost hit an abandoned pickup truck. Do you want me to drive? Chris asked. Kyla nodded. She stood up as Chris slid into the driver's seat beneath her. When Kyla released the steering wheel, Chris saw a group of deadheads who had covered the entire width of the road. They were chewing on a cow. Jesus, she screamed and took a hard right. The ambulance squealed its tires and balanced momentarily on two wheels. She overcompensated the steering wheel to the left, and the ambulance buckled and began to roll end over end into the ditch. Everyone had just closed their eyes and hoped for the best, as glass shattered and metal groaned into their ears. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 21. So, join me next week on Apocalypse Humpday. We'll be going into chapter 22. And Len and his new friend are going to attempt a rescue of them and be reunited. So he'll be reunited with his wife, and the kids will get to see their mom and all that other stuff. Yeah. So, but yes, we lost a good friend, Hal Iverson. Let's give a moment of silence for him. All right. That's good. So, a couple things. This coming Friday, is another edition of What's the Buzz at the Hive. That'll be at 8 o'clock Friday night. And a special guest, Bobby Paulson, will be joining me. And you guys will get to meet him and find out more about him. So, pretty interesting guy, really positive. Yeah, can't get over how positive this dude is. But he's really cool. And, yeah, so there's that. And then also, I am bringing back Coffee with Friends on Sunday mornings. Not going to set a time because that means I have to wake up at a certain time. It's just going to happen when I wake up. So, yeah, trying to make it not too late into the morning because I know some of you guys are early birds out there, and that's just disgusting. Early birds. See, there's a early bird right there. Boom. All right, yeah. So, yeah, the Coffee with Friends thing. Yeah, we'll talk more about it on Friday. So, thank you guys for showing up tonight. Glad you could finally make it out here, Linda, to see the live show. But you missed out on the bad dad zombie jokes. So maybe we'll do that next time. Keep in mind next week on Apocalypse Hump Day, I am playing a gig in Lafayette, Minnesota. So it's 5 to 7, maybe 7:30. So I'm going to be starting Apocalypse Hump Day late on Wednesday, probably 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. So 6 a.m. Man, you're nuts. So we'll see you later, Chuck. Have a good night. Early birds get the worms, right? Yeah, well, since I have to wake up early for work, I sleep in as much as I can in the mornings. And sometimes it's kind of hard to do, but yeah. Anyhow, thanks again, you guys. Elka, good to see you. Kevin, Chuck, all of y'all, even those silent ones that are out there watching the show. Thank you guys for coming. Love you to bits. And I am super tired for some reason, so I think I'm going to clean up and head to bed. Kind of early for that. It's 8:30, but yeah, that's oh well. All right, work. Yeah, Kevin, work. Don't you do that down there in Florida anymore? So, anyhow, all right, you guys. Thanks for joining me, and mwah, peace out. Oh yeah, don't let the zombies get you. Get a badger. Chuck's got a bunch of them. He's willing to share them with you. So yeah, it's a little plug for Chuck. Good night, everybody.